Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we have read chapters 30, 31, and 32 of Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, and we will be talking about them and reviewing them and things like that.
Wherein... Is that what we do?
No, not at all. This is a special occasion for only.
That was the worst intro I think you've ever done.
Wow. We're gonna have to redo this, Cat.
No, don't redo it. Leave this all in. It's gold.
Okay, we're doing it live.
So in these chapters, Blushweaver and Lightsong hang out. They meet up with Hopefinder and negotiate the use of his lifeless. That's what those things are called. Took me a second. And then Vivenna and Co meet up with some of the Idrians who live in Tatalir. That's the name of the city. And that doesn't go super well. A little bit of action in there that you guys have been begging for. And finally, Ciri and Lightsong hear some stories from an old friend of ours who you guys have also probably been waiting for. So I'm Data, and with me is...
Jamie.
Jack.
And I'm Joe, and I'm tired. But not as tired as Data, apparently.
I am a little bit tired, but...
You're flubbing your words a lot, buddy.
Yeah, well, didn't get a lot of sleep the last few days, and it's okay. These things happen. Anyway, hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
To emerge and to breathe anew, for a purpose so far from my own. And this world I've awoken to seems familiar, but somehow unknown. And the branches of gold on the skyline reach out to the sweep of the stars. The beginnings and endings of lifetimes, a guidance of light from afar. Down.
So yeah, 3 more chapters. We get a lot of kind of backstory from our good buddy Hoid and a little bit of action. What did you guys think of these 3 chapters?
Yeah, no, I thought they were still pretty good. I definitely enjoyed Hoid having a little bit more of a role to play in here rather than just being a passerby, which obviously, Lost Metal, he had a bit more of a role, but it was good to actually have more of a conversation with him, which was kind of cool. And yeah, so some interesting surprises in there for Ciri, which is very interesting. Okay. Yeah, things got a little intense there with Vivenna, hey. And the lifeless, it was. I'm glad we finally got to see some lifeless doing their thing as much as it's their thing. Also, a bit of a scary kind of situation there. And where they left that, yeah, Jules is going to be real mad. Yeah, she already doesn't like Vivenna. Knowing what we know about Claude, this is not going to go well for Vivenna, I think. Who else did we see? We saw, and Ciri, no, she was talking to Hoid, that's okay.
Blushweaver and Lightsong was the other stuff.
Blushweaver, yes.
Your favorite character.
Yeah, I still don't like her. I do enjoy her being a little taken aback by Lightsong's antics in the beginning. I love that he's just like, I don't know what I know and what I don't know. I'm just going to try all the things. It just sounds so much fun. Could you imagine if you had all of these hidden skills that no one knew you had, even yourself? And yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. That's a Lightsong I'd like to spend some time with a little bit more. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting conversation. I'm struggling with visually putting together. I can't remember this other god's name.
Hopefinder.
Hopefinder, yes. Like the visual of him being a fairly young boy, but all-knowing and wise as a god. It's interesting, an interesting concept, and they age, but not all of them do, and yeah, that's something to wrap my head around. But also the moment that Lightsong's like, oh, actually, Blushweaver's serious about this. This isn't just something she's toying with. This is, yeah, she didn't consider for a second not giving up her vote. She was like, well, I need your commands, and this is how I'm going to do it. Like, I'm definitely all in for this. She really believes it's happening. So it's kind of a scary moment too. And she seems to hold quite a bit of sway and power amongst the gods that we've seen anyway. So yeah, that's a little terrifying where that's going to go. But all in all, 3 good chapters. I am still really liking this story.
Yeah, talking about Blushweaver's power, she apparently has gotten now the commands from 2 of the other gods, so she controls 50% of the lifeless army. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
You made me think about, like, when you're talking about Light Song. So if you were trying to figure out what secret talents you might have, what's the first stuff that you would try?
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know.
This is where John Goodman shows up. He's like, whatever, dude, let's go bowling.
I mean, I think it's really different if you're, effectively immortal. You might be willing to try something a little more dangerous. I don't know. Would you like go walk a tightrope or something? Maybe you've got like acrobatic skills. Like that would be kind of cool. But you'd have to start small on that, I reckon, if you knew that you could die.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Hey.
That's exactly his problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on, let's go back there. That is the best thing to put on a t-shirt. Start small if you know you might die.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, I think maybe I'd try to see if I could dance well. I was a good dancer.
See, there's a start small, as long as it's not tightrope dancing.
Yeah.
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 Or not pole dancing. That might be a little dangerous.
There's less chance of dying while dancing, presumably. Anyway.
Can you imagine how boring it would be to like figure out, are you a good like manager or a good leader? Because that is a real skill. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But having to go through them all to figure it out, or is figuring out like you're a lion tamer or something, like that would be pretty wild.
The problem with having the skill of management, though, is the people who aren't good at it, they don't recognize that they're not good at it.
Yeah.
Now that we've said this, I just want more and more scenes of Light Song doing increasingly bonkers things. Like, am I good at this? It's like, oh my god, why are you wrestling a jaguar? Because I want to know if I'm good at it.
He tries some weird stuff right off the bat. Like, he's like, maybe I'm good at juggling. Turns out I am. He also tries some of the things I would have tried, where he's like, let's see if I know any other languages. Like, that's a simple one that you can try to figure out.
That's a pretty good one, yeah.
But yeah, because it could be very useful if you secretly knew several languages.
I definitely think art and pottery, like something creative, it would be really cool if you just sort of knew how to do that. Or cooking, put a whole bunch of stuff in front of you and it's like, can I make something out of it? Is it instinctive? That would be interesting.
It'd be funnier if he just like stood in front of a mirror and was like, I know Kung Fu.
Yeah, these chapters were a lot of fun. Since we're talking about it, I loved the scene of Light Song trying to figure out his past skills, and Blushweaver's just like, what the fuck is going on right now? It's like, I think it's the first time we've really seen her caught off guard by something, so that was hilarious to me. But I think Hopefinder, you're the first really interesting return aside from Light Song that we've seen, I think. Like, this guy seems pretty switched on, and just, the juxtaposition of him being in the most immature body is, really fascinating. So, like, I hope we see more of that guy. The action scene was cool. It's really cool to see the Lifeless in action. To go to Hoid, I gotta really ask the question, why the fuck was he a beggar on Scadrial and Cell? Because, like, on Nalthus and Taldane, he is damn good at being a professional entertainer. It's like, why doesn't he sell that skill elsewhere? He is wasted as a beggar.
It's true. Yeah, maybe traveling minstrels or whatever aren't that popular in.
I mean, Scadrial, I can sort of see it, because, I mean, maybe you'd think that, like, the nobles would have still had, at least in Era 1, would have still had entertainers at their balls and stuff, so I don't know. But Cell, surely he could have sold that skill on Cell. Some alliteration.
I guess later on he's a driver on Scadrial, which seems an even like odder random choice, but it helps you stay close to Wax if that was what he was interested in.
Yeah, that one seemed to make more sense, and like he seemed to repeat. He did that a couple of times, but then he still fell back on being a beggar even in Era 2. Like,
it's true,
dude. Why? So, but yeah, no, seeing him do his thing, that was fascinating. I loved watching Hoid show up and do that. The other thing I want to bring up is like Vivenna. I think now that we've been around her for quite a while, I think she's probably actually the least interesting protagonist we've had in a Sanderson book so far.
Interesting.
And I don't mean that to try and bag her out as a character. I'm sure like she's got some good stuff coming, because Sanderson usually will build something with his leads. But I think just her, she's your typical haughty princess who is learning that your standard, the world is not what you thought lesson. But we're already like halfway through the book and she's still learning it. And I'm just like, how much more time are we going to spend on this? I want to get to the point where she accepts, okay, the world is different to what I thought. I'm going to take that. I'm going to use that knowledge and start putting back based on that. So I would like to see that. But there was a moment in these chapters, and it was only a fleeting moment, where she mentioned something like her childhood was stolen from her in preparation to come to Halandrin, and then that purpose was stolen from her as well. And like you see, there's actually some seething rage in there that like she has never had any autonomy of her own based on that. And I just thought, whoa, stop. Can we focus on that? Because that sounds fascinating. But we just breezed over it. I want to go back to that. I want to know, like, come on, Vivenna, tell me what pisses you off, because I want to see you do something for you. Because yeah, like I once I caught that mention, I'm just like, holy shit, there's some real issues here that we could look at, and it sounds fascinating to me. I don't want to see more of just like, this is what the Idrian people should be, and the Idrian people are just like, fuck no. I'm like, oh, okay, but yeah.
I think that's really interesting, and I hope that you're right, and that we get more of a look at Vivenna and who she actually is now that she's gone through something so crazy. Like, she had a point where she was trying to awaken something that's a fundamental shake-up of who she is, and then what you're saying, Dak, there as well. I think that'll be really interesting to see how that unfolds. Hopefully we get more of that. I'm with you.
Yeah, as soon as you were like, there's that one moment, I knew which moment you were going to refer to, because it really feels like the first time we see what she's really feeling, or like what's going on deep down, where she spent her whole life and most of this book being like, no, I have to be the princess. I'm supposed to do what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. And we get that one little glimpse.
It really seemed like it was the first time all book where she wasn't thinking about what her country needed, what her dad needed, what her sister needed, what anyone else needed. She's just like, this is what I fucking need. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, okay, let's explore that, please.
Mm-hmm. But then she's like, back to the mission.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I've talked about this before. I don't have a problem with selfless characters who are utterly devoted to doing what other people need, but it can get frustrating when it's mixed up with the naive character who doesn't get how the world works and has to constantly keep getting multiple facets of the world being explained to her, as happens here with the gang leaders, that the Idrian people aren't what she thought. Like, mixing those two together is just a bit frustrating to see constantly unfolding. So yeah, like, contrary to what I may have said in the past, I want to see Vivenna get a bit selfish, because frankly, I think she deserves it at this point.
That's an interesting way to look at it. It's like, she deserves to be selfish. Get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, these chapters, good. A lot of exposition still, some action. I did like I don't know even how to describe it. It's like the exposition that we get in the form of Lightsong thinking about how God's work to himself, which, like, why was Lightsong doing that? It was kind of weird. But yeah, his meeting with the 13-year-old God kid, I actually found him kind of, my personal opinion, I found it kind of boring. I feel like I've seen, like, the cynical child, like, physically look like a child, but like the old man cynical mentality trope in a young person's body, like, thing before. I was kind of like, it's not really doing it for me, especially because then it's like he's interested in politics. He wants to sell his stuff so that voting goes a certain way for him. And it's just like, I don't know. It just seems really like a weird motivation. Even if you are super into, like, helping the people in the way of government, like, I don't know, it just seems like a really weird motivation. Be like, yeah, I'll give you control of these armies for this vote, because I don't think we're gonna go to war, or whatever it was he was thinking. Not thinking, as a return, just like, dude, if you give her those armies, she could start a, like, forget about avoiding a war between Idris and Haladrin. She could just start one. But anyway, and then we've got I kind of went out of order here, but we've got the Vivenna stuff. Claude coming in to save her, cool moments. I agree with Dak and Jamie. Those kind of internal struggle moments. We've kind of seen a bunch of them so far, but the touch where she actually feels her own feelings for once, for like a few seconds, interesting character development. Even stronger character development when in dire need she tries to use the awakening power. So I kind of think that maybe this is the turning point for her after having this experience of almost being killed, after being saved by Claude, after almost turning to awakening anyway. I think this is kind of her turning point. Maybe we're going to start see her learning how to awaken and use these powers and actually take charge of her own destiny, because she's come to grips with a lot of like deep stuff, seeing the Idrian people in Tetalier. So we've got that portion, and then we've got Ciri and Hoid. A lot of exposition again, but all interesting things. You know, I'll accept the exposition when it's like, hey, I'm flat out telling you this guy's a storyteller. He's going to tell you these histories. You know, I buy that.
You're about to say, I'll accept exposition when it's delivered by the sexy drifter.
Yeah, that too. But no, I mean, it makes sense. It's like story-wise, like she wanted to hear these stories, so its delivery makes complete sense. So yeah, I enjoyed all of the information that we got. I'm hoping that this is a big turning point in the books. Each section felt like we're on the verge of something, so I feel like that's very promising for what we're going to experience going forward. Hopefully that momentum doesn't drop immediately in the next section. And hopefully Vasher will show up. But anyway,
who knows? Maybe he'll come around somewhere.
Yeah, I guess.
Somebody just really loves Vasher, the even sexier drifter.
Yeah, he's not sexier, but he is cool because he's got a sword instead of a flute.
He's got a talkie sword.
It's true. He's got an evil killing sword.
You don't see Vasher riding no corpse boats.
I mean, I think he could if he wanted to. That seems like pretty easy. He could just be like, hey, lifeless, become a boat.
That is true.
He could just ride the corpse boat. Yeah. What if Spanky was a lifeless? Whoa, that'd be out there, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
We're through the looking glass.
Yeah, totally.
It could be. I mean, we don't know anything about Spanky really, except that his parents were still alive and married.
Yeah.
There you go, Brandon. If you're listening, that's the story the people want. Spanky story.
Yeah, retcon
Spanky.
Yeah, yep. Retcon Spanky as lifeless. Give us the backstory. We want it all.
I mean, didn't he say he was considering doing a novella about Human the Koloss, and then he instead like gave everyone that guy's life story of when he was actually a person and just dumped it online?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. That sounds like a thing I said.
Like this is do this even if you don't like write a novella for it, even though you totally could. You can do the same for Spanky.
Yeah, everybody needs a story. There's so many of these little things that he's questions he's answered and stuff that they call the words of Brandon, and there's a whole website that stores them. Sometimes they change. He'll say one thing and then later it'll be like, nah, I've changed my mind on that. But somebody in the Discord was suggesting that we have like every episode we have like the word of Brandon of the week or whatever. And they were like, and you could ask the audience to submit stuff. So I'm considering that possibility. I mean, usually if I feel a thing that he said in that context is relevant, then I'll just put it in the episode anyway. And if it's not relevant, then it would be weird to throw it out here for us to talk about. But I don't know.
Which I'm glad you brought that up, because I do want to say it seems like every new section we read of this book, like there's more and more like sort of hinting at the relationship between Claude and Jules. And then I remember what you told us. And presumably you told us because it's not in the book. I'm like, how is it not in the book? They're leaning on it so fucking hard.
Yeah. The hindsight and all that.
Yeah. It was like, yeah, if we didn't know, would we pick up on this at all?
Yeah, I'm curious about the alternate universe where I didn't say anything. And would you guys be like, do you think that maybe like Jules and Claude? And somebody's like, no, ew, of course not. Well, Brandon would never do that.
Well, when I think of alternate universes, that difference does not cross my mind. There's far more interesting alternate universes out there for sure.
But it's like Jamie actually had a theory about what happened to Arsteel after dying, and then you brought that up, and Jamie said, oh well, that doesn't work anymore. So
right.
Yeah, and I think with what we read this week, actually seeing Claude in action, you go, oh, actually skilled swordsman. Maybe you would have gone. Maybe we could have predicted that.
Yeah.
with the information we have
Yes.
now. Obviously not then, but we might have gone in a different direction.
Yeah, so thanks for shitting on that, Data.
Well, I mean,
Yes, spoilers, Data.
if you predicted it and it wasn't mentioned in the book, then like it never would have come true. I don't know.
David,
True.
did you tell us did you say that prediction on the show, or did you tell me afterwards?
She mentioned it.
No, I was on the show.
Yeah,
Okay.
after
we got
I
to
revealed
predictions,
that
and I
it
was
wasn't
like, so my prediction was that he was Light Song or whatever. But
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if we talked about it afterwards or if you mentioned it on the show.
no, I was on the show.
All right, let's do this thing. Let's get into these chapters. So we start out, as we've discussed, with Light Song and Blushweaver. She's like, what in the name of the iridescent tones are you doing? And he's sitting here. He's had his people bring in like pottery wheel, and he's trying to throw a pot or something, and it doesn't work well. Like there's clumps go flying everywhere, and he's like, huh.
Yeah. That is an art, man. You cannot just like get on the pottery wheel and expect it to
It's true.
to do your bidding. So
It is a whole thing.
Just need Patrick Swayze as a ghost.
yeah, it's true.
And so she's like, what was that? And he's like, I just discovered that I'm no good at pottery. Actually, I'm worse than no good. I am pathetic, ridiculously bad. And she's like, well, what did you expect? And he's like, I don't know. And she's just like, is everything okay? Because he picks up 5 lemons and starts to juggle them. And she's like, are you all right, dude? And he says, I never practiced juggling. Grab that guava fruit and toss it in here. And so he's good at juggling. Like, honestly, that's such a simple thing that you can easily try. That might also be one of the first things that I tried. Like, yeah, can I juggle? And she's just like, cannot figure out what to say to this. I don't know that I've ever seen another god throwing fruit into the air. And so he sums it up. Today I've discovered I know a surprising number of sailing terms, that I am fantastic at mathematics, that I have a fairly good eye for sketching. On the other hand, I know nothing about the dyeing industry, horses, or gardening. I have no talent for sculpting. I cannot speak any foreign languages. And as you can see, I am terrible at pottery. And she's just still like, what is happening here? And he explains, like, look, these skills that Light Song has no right to know. These are from who I was before I died. And she says, we're not supposed to worry about that. And he's like, I'm a god. I'll worry about whatever I want. And they take off. They're going to go and talk to someone. And he's like, you can't tell me you've never wondered. And she's like, dude, I was boring before. How do you know that? Because I was an ordinary person. I would have been, well, have you seen regular women? Ouch. That's, and she's like, why do you want to know about your normal life? What if you were like a murderer or a rapist or worse, had bad fashion sense? And let's see, there's the one moment where she says, I think you overestimate me. And he goes, that's impossible. And then she like flushes a little bit. And he's like, oh, I did that. And she says, oh, bother. Now you spoiled the moment. I was about to say something very clever. I just know it. So there was like one weird kind of legitimate moment between them before they slip back into the whole banter thing. And there is an annotation where Brandon says that Light Song is not the first, of course, to wonder about his old life and realize that some of his skills and abilities came with him to the new life. But he's the first of this generation of gods who's taken any interest in it. If you're interested in knowing, his father was actually a potter. As for why he knows the other stuff, some of it comes up eventually. Some of it will remain a mystery.
If his father was a potter, why is he so bad at it?
I guess he didn't take after his dad.
Also,
You didn't want to take over family business.
that's so
Yeah.
random. Like, why would he think to try that just because of like some kind of weird thing in the back of his head that his dad did that? Like,
I don't know.
such a strange thing. Or maybe like if Larimar knew him before, maybe Larimar suggested it. I don't know.
Oh, that's true. He could have.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, so he's obviously got some kind of core memory of it somewhere for it to come up because it is fairly niche.
I mean, maybe his dad made him like try it a bunch when he was a kid and he never got good at it. And so there's like that thing still in the back of his head about it.
It's like, why do I know how? Or it's like, how do I know how to do this? Master, they erased it from the memory.
When the returned wake up, they all just, like, the men in black are just waiting there with the neuralizer. It's like, all right, cool, go.
All right, you're good.
And then I like her conclusion: when all else fails, use sexual innuendo. It always brings the focus back to where it belongs, on me. And they arrive at Hope Finder's palace, whose colors are lavender and silver.
I don't like that they had like a little moment where they were genuine with one another, because I don't like her.
No, she's ridiculous.
Yes.
That's fair. You're like, I don't want this to become a thing between them because I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah. Okay.
Also, I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about Lightsong, though, right? It's like a lot of times he's not likable either because he puts on this stupid, like, witty banter, sarcastic, jokey bullshit. And you're just like, dude, you're not funny. Just stop. But I guess we're inside his head, so like we can see that that's like a facade he puts on. It's not real.
Yeah.
And
At
so
least to some degree.
maybe the Blushweaver thing is a facade, but it's real hard to tell.
So they've gone to visit Hope Finder the Just, god of innocence and beauty, who looks about 13. When in point of fact, he's one of the oldest returned in like how long it's been since they returned. He returned when he had been 2, which makes him Lightsong Senior by 6 years, which means he's been here like 11 years, which comes up later. And so we find out here in a bit that when you return and you're young, your body grows to like maturity more or less and then stops ish. Although there's some return to look older, some that look younger.
I wonder if it's like what in your head is the perfect age, maybe. Or a perception of you as the perfect age.
Yeah, it might be. And there's an annotation I was going to touch on here where Brandon says, I wanted to show some return of different ages. I think it's important for people to realize you can return at any age. There's children, babies, grandmothers, and anybody could return at any age. Hope Finder is the youngest person currently at court, though there are a couple of gods who are in their teens when they returned. Often when a god returns in their middle years, their body transforms to be more youthful, but not always. It depends on the god. So, yeah, just there's lots of different levels or ages, basically, you might see a god at.
I guess, too, like Lightstorm was talking about how, you know, he came back and he's got this muscular body that he doesn't work for, and it sort of seems unfair that he's blessed with this, but other people come back and they're still old or they're still larger or anything like that. Maybe it's the way you died. It's kind of I don't know. If you died in a brave way, then you deserve to have the physique of a bold, brave person. I don't know.
Maybe. So this guy is god of, what was it, innocence and beauty, which makes he died at 2 years old. So how did he die that exemplified innocence and beauty?
Maybe because he was so young as a child.
Yeah. If you're a 2-year-old, then I guess you would be innocent, and you could be a very good-looking 2-year-old. So maybe it's not hard to exemplify those. And Hope Finder, he's getting a little weary of this god life, it seems like. And he's talking about there was a case during petitions that was really tough. A woman whose child was dying of the fever. She'd already lost her other 3 as well as her husband all in a year. And Blushweaver's like, you're not actually considering like passing on your breath. Like, I don't know. I'm old. I feel old. Maybe it's my time. I'm the 5th most aged, you know. And Blushweaver's like, but the times are getting so exciting. And he's like, exciting? No, they're calming down. We've got a new queen. My sources in the palace say that she's pursuing her duties to produce an heir with great vigor. Stability will soon arrive. It's good to know that the rumors are getting around about what's going on in the bedroom.
Sure. Vigorous lovemaking.
And he's heard about what Blushweaver's been up to. She thinks the Idrians are going to try to use the queen to take the throne. He's like, I don't agree. And she says there's rumors in the city of Idrian agents causing a ruckus and a so-called second princess somewhere in the city. So they're hearing about Vivenna in the court of the gods. Not Lightsong, though. He has no idea what's going on. And Hope Finder, he doesn't believe any of this. He's like, there's not going to be a war. And really, he's bored of the god life, but also because every god apparently gets a thing. They get lifeless commands for 4 of them. They get votes on certain issues for some of them. And so he's been here for 11 years and never once needed to use the thing that they gave him, the lifeless commands. So he's like, it's boring. I don't get like a say in anything that matters.
Yeah, he seems like one of the few returned who actually wants to do something good for people. And he doesn't have the ability to do that, which is like, oh man, that's tough.
Yep. And Blushweaver is, I feel like Lightsong's not entirely sure if she's intentionally trying to flirt with him or if that's just her being Blushweaver. And we do get like his internal monologue kind of that Joe's talking about like how gods work and, you know, how they age and all that other stuff. It says that Blushweaver lasciviously sucked on a pieces of pineapple, and eventually he's just like, okay, look, can you just stop? It's not working.
It's not. You know what? It's not cute. You should probably just stop that. Also, like, why would you suck on a pineapple piece? It's all pulp. Just eat it.
There's a lot of juice running down your chin right now, and I just want to wipe it with a napkin.
Yeah, like, honestly, that's not sexy. You look like a sticky child. Like, you got sticky juice all over your mouth. It's gross.
He's a child. Blushweaver, stop. Stop.
Yeah, ew, gross, right?
Yeah, I guess in Blushweaver's head, although she may not have been flirting with him, but in her head, it's like, well, he's not really a child.
I mean, he's apparently one of the oldest of the returns, so
Yeah.
in length of time since return. I also like to note that some of the gods, like there's images of fat gods from previous times, but in our culture's history, being fat was seen as like more ideal at that time. So do the return like look the way society sees them?
Yeah, and that's what I thought maybe about the aging process too. It's like they look the way people expect them to look.
Could be.
Which
And
says a whole weird thing about the dude bro gods, because it's like,
right?
So they're like, so people like these dude bros, huh?
And so he's just like, before we go any further, I must point out that your obvious attempts to seduce me will gain you nothing. And she's embarrassed, and Lightsong jumps in. It's like, she's not trying to seduce you. You have to understand it's like her being her. And he's like, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to be swayed by that or by her paranoid arguments and fears. And she says her contacts don't think that this is paranoia. And he's like, well, who are your contacts? People in the God King's palace. He's like, yeah, we all have people in the God King's palace. And Lightsong jumps in. I don't. Can I have one of yours? My contact is quite important, Blushweaver says. He hears things, knows things. War is coming. And I like, Hopefinder's like, okay, whatever. I don't believe you. I'm not going to believe you, but that's not actually important. You don't need me to believe you. You just want my army, right? And Blushweaver's like, yeah, pretty much. What is it going to cost us? And this is where he says that he spent 11 years where just deciding to learning to loathe this system of government because it's left him with nothing to do. Only the people who hold the votes in certain fields ever get a say over what happens. So he has these lifeless commands. Blushweaver has a vote on the Council of Social Ills. She has an important vote practically every week. So I'll give you my security phrases. All you have to do is vote however I tell you to until one of us dies. And he kind of immediately jumps into, you see, you're not so eager to lose your vote on important stuff just for this sort of thing. And she's like, nope, done. My vote's yours. I accept these terms. And everyone is kind of surprised by this. Like, whoa, she was not messing around. Okay. And Lightsong, he's kind of low key offended that they're just going to trade their votes, like the get around how the government's supposed to work so easily, handing over what's supposed to be your sacred obligation just because you're bored. But then he's like, I don't really have any room to chastise another's lack of piety. I don't even believe that we're gods. So Hopefinder gives Blushweaver his security phrase, a candle by which to see. And then very dramatically, he's like, and now I withdraw. There is a vote this evening at the court. You will attend and cast your vote the way I say.
I should use that line more often, like when I'm trying to leave something. It's like, and now I withdraw.
Yeah, how are they going to argue with that?
It's very, I don't know. It seems like very Phantom of the Opera-esque.
Yeah, I'm just picturing just sweep the cape in front of your face and just
exactly. And then the organ comes in. It's like dun, 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 dun.
Just throw a smoke bomb and just run away.
Yeah. Smoke screen.
Batman.
Yeah.
And I afterwards, Lightsong's like, why do I feel like we just got manipulated? And she says, we only got manipulated if there isn't a war. If there is, then we just set ourselves up to save the whole court, maybe the kingdom itself.
Or start a war.
Right. How very altruistic of us. We're like that, Blushweaver said. So selfless at times, it's painful. But now we have 2 gods worth of lifeless. He's like, oh, mine and Hopefinders? No, I was actually talking about Hopefinders and Mercy Stars. She does not count Lightsong as being on board quite yet. But Mercy Star confided her commands to Blushweaver yesterday. All the while talking about how comforted she was by the fact that you took a personal interest in the incident in her palace. That was very well done, by the way.
He's like, that was a complete accident. I was just wanting to learn about the palace for my own reasons.
She was so comforted by Lightsong's taking an interest, but didn't give her commands to Lightsong. Gave them to Blushweaver instead. Whatever.
They did come together. He didn't ask for them.
That's true. Yeah, I'm sure Blushweaver was over there like needling her and like encouraging her towards this. So. And like Lightsong tries to explain, like, I'm just curious. Like, I want to know about the death of this servant. And Blushweaver's like, yeah, I don't believe that. Would I lie to you? Only every time you claim you don't want to sleep with me. Lies, brazen lies. And so he has to say, like, I think that in my previous life I was like a cop or something. I was really good at interrogating those servants. At least that's my own humble opinion, which we've established is quite altruistic. And he's like, oh, I mean, if I was like a cop, then maybe that explains how I died in a bold way. And she's like, I just assumed that you were found in bed with a much younger woman and her father killed you. Seems far more bold than dying from stab wounds while trying to catch some petty thief.
Come on, lady, stop making sex your entire personality.
Yeah, it's really getting old. One trick pony, am I right?
Yeah.
These zingers are not very good either. It's like I was like yawning at this point. I'm just like, okay, come on.
She makes me think it's like the guys in all the college movies who just won't shut up about how great they are at sex and they turn out to be terrible at it. So I'm just imagining like she won't shut up about it. She's actually just
yeah, she's just really bad at it. Yeah, she just lies there and she's like, what's going on?
Yep. She's probably worse at it than the God King. He doesn't even know what sex is.
Yeah.
He doesn't. She's like, you're serious? And he goes, dead serious. Dead as a squirrel serious. She's so confused. And he's like, it's a personal joke, whatever.
It's a thing. I have this squirrel. It's dead. Whatever. Just move on.
There's just one thing I can't figure out, and that is how juggling lemons fits into it all. That really is the question, right? Where does that come in?
Where does that come in?
He was a juggling police officer. Solved all his cases through juggling.
It's like, and then I found this, and he starts juggling like a murder weapon. It's like, and I know that this murder weapon belongs to you. And then he starts juggling the guy he's talking about.
One of these chainsaws I'm juggling was the murder weapon. My fingerprints are now on all of them, though. So, chapter 31, we go to Vivenna and Co. All of them are heading to this big meeting. Denth's still not a big fan of this meeting. They're my people, Denth. He's like, so? Mercenaries are my people, and you don't see me spending much time with them. They're a smelly, annoying lot. So, they're going to go into the slums to meet up with these leaders among the Idrian populace. And I like that Vivenna's like, the difference between Halandrins and Idrians is we pay attention to our people. Which Jules, being a Halandrin, is like, whatever. And Denth's just like, well, I'm not Halandrin, so I don't give a shit. But Vivenna instantly feels like this place feels darker than like the other seedy parts of town she's been to. Run-down shops, unrepaired streets, everybody watching her suspiciously. And she's like, I'm worried about my people. This slum is so bad, and my people have to live surrounded by this? And Denth is like, what? It's like, yeah, living amongst these prostitutes and gangs. They have to walk past this stuff every day. And he laughs, and he's like, Princess, your people don't live among prostitutes and gangs. Your people are the prostitutes and gangs. This is the Idrian quarter of the city. The slums are called the Highlands, for color's sake. And this is just how it goes in cities all over the world. Immigrants gather together. They make their own little enclave within this larger, like, foreign culture. And the enclave gets conveniently ignored by the rest of the city. When roads are repaired, other places come first. When guards are sent to patrol, other places get patrolled instead. And so
civilization.
And she can't believe it. No way that these are our people. And then she starts noticing the little details that, yeah, no, actually they are. I don't understand, Denth. We're a peaceful people, a people of mountain villages. We're open and friendly. He's like, no, that kind of person doesn't last long in the slum. They change or they get beaten down. And she's just like, oh, okay, that's what it is. Halandrin has made my people into this. This is worse than I thought. They've made thugs and thieves of caring shepherds, and they've turned our women into prostitutes and our children into urchins. It's all their fault. And this is when she has her moment where she's like, Halandrin ruined these people just as it ruined me by dominating my childhood, by forcing me to honor the obligation to be taken in the name of protecting my country. I hate this city. So that, like, she spent the whole book being like, I was supposed to do this thing, and it was going to be, you know, my job or whatever. And here's where we find out what she really thinks about it is this was horrible. It's dominated and ruined my entire life, all because of this hateful people.
And it's kind of just like wow, you have a really tight grip, or you buried it deep for us to not see this part behind the curtain until now.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like self-preservation on some level, because if you're going to be forced to do this, then thinking about it like that is not going to make it easy to do.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Like, it makes a whole lot of sense. But I'm just like, now that we've seen that little glimpse behind the curtain, it's like, I want to see more.
Right? Like, let's see the real Vivenna.
Yeah.
And so Thame joins them, and here they talk to a bunch of the common people. She's like, I know that you have hard lives. The king does care for you. I want to find a way to bring you home. And they're like, wait, back to the Highlands? And then they just start leaving. Thame says most of them just wanted confirmation that you are who you were supposedly. And she's like, no, people, your lives can get better. I can see that you're cared for. And one of the guys is like, our lives are better. I earned twice as much here as I did back in the Highlands. And other people are all agreeing. And Thame says, these people are patriots. They cling to being Idrians, city Idrians. We stick together. They may seem indifferent, but they'll do anything to get back at the Halandrins. And she's like, these people aren't even Idrians anymore. Like, he calls them patriots, but it's just a group that's held together by how much they hate the city around them, how much they hate these other people. Which, little pot kettle action there, I feel like, on some level, after what we just saw of Vivenna, but whatever.
Yeah, Vivenna, come on.
And so they go to meet with three, I mean, basically like crime lords, Idrian crime lords.
Yep.
All of them at least the first heightening, so they've bought at least 50 breaths. One of them the third, which once again, I understand that Vivenna didn't want the breaths, but once again, you're just kind of like, are you really one to talk when you're at like the third heightening or fifth? I forget where she is.
Which if they're at the third heightening, then one of the guys knows that she has breaths, and they're like, I would have straight up said that in the meeting. It's like, I can see you have breaths.
So one of them, Paxson, the gentleman Idrian, got his money from running brothels. Then there's Ashu, who runs illegal underground fighting leagues where Idrians box each other into unconsciousness. And then Rira is the sloppy one in the middle. And she's just like, I don't know what to say to you guys. I came here to find something that doesn't exist, people that still cared about their heritage. And like, we care. You're our princess, daughter of the king. We care about that. And Paxton is like, I mean, kind of. And so they disagree about whether war is coming or not. She's saying that yes, it definitely is. And I'm trying to make sure the war goes our way. And they're like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? Like, you want to conquer Halandrin, put like a royal back on the throne? And she's like, no, I just want to make sure our people survive. And they're like, wars are fought to be won, not just to survive. You're going to lose thinking like that. If we help you overthrow the city, what do we get out of that? And then one of them's like, wait, do we really want to get involved in that kind of thing again? What about Var? We lost a lot of money on that guy. And Ashu's like, Var was Pancall, not one of us. I'm willing to take the risk for real royals involved. And she's like, no, I came here to bring our people some hope. And Paxton's like, who cares about hope? I want commitments. Will we get titles? Who gets the trade contracts? The sloppy guy's like, you have a sister, a third unmarried one. Is her hand bargainable? I don't know that monks are allowed to do that.
No, they're definitely not. And he should know that.
And she's like, this isn't about personal gain.
He may
it's
not
about
know she's a
patriotism. Yeah, maybe not.
I guess that's true. If he hasn't been home forever, he may not know what she does.
And Rear's like, yeah, whatever. Even patriots should get rewards, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Vivenna was extremely naive to come here and not think that they would expect something in return for their support. Like, really? Whatever. And she's just like, okay, I'm leaving. This is bullshit. And Dent's like, are you sure you want to do that? I mean, it took a lot of effort to set this up.
She's like, this is egregious.
And she says she just can't do it. She can't work with these people knowing that they're her own people. It's too hard. And one of the guys is like, oh, look at you, all judgy judge. What about the five visions? You sweep in here and judge us and then sweep away. That's not very Idrian.
Damn, he's got her now.
And their religion just sounds like no fun.
Not allowed to judge people at all. Lame.
Ugh. Religion's the worst.
And the one guy is like, my father carried me down here from the Highlands, princess. He died working in the Edgeley fields. I've pulled myself up by the pain of my scraped, bleeding hands. I worked very hard to make things better for your people. You buy breath and make prostitutes of housewives. And he goes, I live, and I make sure that everyone else has enough food. Will you do better for them? And before she can answer, which I don't know what she would have answered, people start screaming. And here come men with gray faces in purple and yellow uniforms, which that's just hideous. Like, jeez. The lifeless soldiers, the city watch. And Dent says, run. And they take off. And Tongfa's like, it's a raid. It shouldn't be too dangerous unless, and then they hear blades. And it's like, oh, crap. Some of them are fighting. The fools decided to resist. Now we're in trouble. And Dent says, maybe they're just after the slumlords. Keep moving. Or Tongfa. One of them says that doesn't matter. And then they run into some, it's just Tongfa and Vivenna running. And they run into some lifeless. And Tongfa's like, I can't take 5 of them on my own. We'll have to let them arrest us. And so they put up their hands and he's like, we surrender. And then the creatures attack.
It makes me think, what game is that? I think it might be Jack and Dexter. It might be Jack 2, the sequel. But it's like they say surrender and die. And he's like, wait, don't you mean surrender or die?
There's a great bit in Emperor's New Groove with that same sort of joke, which is not the best movie, but the twins love it, and so I've had to hear it a lot.
I mean, it's not a terrible movie.
No, it's not terrible.
But as far as Disney movies go, I feel like it's actually genuinely funny at times, at least.
Yeah. It's like, open the door and we'll burn the house down. Don't you mean or you'll burn the house down? It's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
That's not what we meant, but yeah, that's fine.
The little girl's like, which one is it? Because that seems like a pretty important conjunction. So Vivenna runs, trips over her own skirt, which they were telling her, get out of these long skirts, get some pants, get some short skirt, whatever.
What can you do? She's a modest gal.
And so she has to rip the skirt off to try to get going again. And then she sees at the other end of the alleyway another lifeless. And she's like, oh, crap, I'm done. And she remembers Denth trying to tell her to use, these breaths are powerful. Use them. And she actually gives in. Earlier, we saw her tell herself, like, if she was ever tempted to awaken, then she would just give the breath away rather than that. But here she takes this rope and she tries to use it to save herself with awakening. She goes, come to life, and nothing happens. Please save me.
You need to know how it works, princess. Sorry.
And maybe you should have practiced if you were going to use it. I'm just saying.
It's true.
And then the lifeless makes it to her and jumps over her. And that's when she realizes that it's Claude. And he pulls out his sword and takes the head off of one of the lifeless, and he starts fighting them.
It's pretty wild. I feel like this is one of those cinematic scenes that Brandon would write.
Zombie sword fight, yeah. And Claude takes them all out, although he gets injured in the process. And the sword after it has killed some of these, she says it drips a clear liquid. So they don't have blood, they have something else. And she's surprised by, she says the creatures move with proficiency and coordination just as a human might, except there's no speaking. She always imagined lifeless as like decaying skeletons or corpses, but they're more real than she thought. And so Claude ends up winning the day, but with a weapon sticking out of his chest. And he kind of falls to one knee at the end. And then Tongfa and Denth find them. And Tongfa's like, Jules is not going to be pleased. Come on, we got to get out of here.
It's like, oh man, my boyfriend's got a rip in his stomach.
Your dead boyfriend? Yeah, that one.
Obviously, which other one would I be talking about? And so that's the end of chapter 31. 32, we cut back to Ciri, who is sleeping till noon because she and Susebron stay up late talking to each other.
Let's be fair, she's sleeping till noon because she can, because you know.
Right. Some might see that that she was getting up later and later each morning and think it was due to other activities.
Sure.
And she's thinking about him and like how endearing it is, the way that they communicate and how he writes. If he spoke, she suspected his voice would be kindly. And while she misses the Highlands and she doesn't like the fact that she can't leave the court of the gods, things here are really, kind of amazing. Brilliant colors, performers. The whole experience is overwhelming. But she's like, we got to figure out what we're going to do here. This is not a game. This is his life that we're talking about. Politics is about exchange. Like she's trying to remember anything she can from her lessons. Politics is about exchanges, giving what you had or what you implied that you had in order to gain something. Her problem is she doesn't have anything. So she has to kind of fake it. And she finds one of the brown robed women that work here. And she tells her, like, she's like, I need to talk to Bluefingers. Bluefingers has knowledge. She says, I want you to give a message to Bluefingers. Tell him I have vital information he needs to know and I want to trade. Tell him it could change his plans drastically. And the girl nods and takes off. And she's like, okay, now I just have to figure out what vital information I have and why Bluefingers should care. That's a bold move, Siri. See how it works out. But then she goes and she's going to visit with Lightsong. And they have, some more of their little back and forth. A very different kind of banter than what Lightsong has with Blushweaver. But I do like, he's like, you remind me of someone I was once very fond of. Who's that? I have no idea. I can barely remember.
Blushweaver. I mean, not Blushweaver.
Lightsong?
Yeah, sure, that guy.
And she asks why they call you Lightsong the Bold, and he, of course, just bullshits some. It's like, oh, because I'm the only one bold enough to act like a complete idiot.
And she's like, you don't talk to a lot of women, do you?
I do like this line. At nights, my fondest desire is to sit and compose interminably paraphrastic lectures on morality for my priests to read to my followers. Alas, I cannot. Paraphrastic is a good word.
Sure.
I had to look it up, but it's a fun word.
I was going to say, I'll admit that's a word I was not familiar with until now.
Paraphrastic. Give us the definition, Data.
Okay, so I don't say the wrong thing. I'll bring it up again. It is indirect and circumlocutory.
Well, give me the circumlocutory definition.
If it's like beating around the bush, or just like indirect is probably the best way to do it. The best definition. So you're saying a lot of things without actually saying what you're saying.
Saying anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, no, seriously, where does the name come from? And he goes, it's a complete misnomer. Obviously, you're intelligent enough to see that. Our names and titles are assigned randomly by a small monkey who's been fed an exceedingly large amount of gin. All right, I'll go with it.
More and more ridiculous.
I have to admit, him saying the word gin took me out of it. I'm like, this isn't Earth, bro. You guys don't have gin.
Why can't they have gin?
Because it's like a very specific type of drink.
What's gin even made out of?
Scagel had like whiskey and shit.
I believe gin is made out of corn.
It's juniper berries.
Yeah, barley or other grain, juniper berries.
Juniper berries. Is that why it's called gin with a J, but juniper spelled with a J? I'm so confused. But in Hebrew, Jehovah spelled with an I.
J.
Finally, when she's given up, he's like, he admits it has to do with death. The way that we die exemplifies a particular attribute or emotion. That is what is said to bring us back. She's like, oh, so you died showing great bravery? He's like, I guess. I don't really know. Something in my dreams suggests I may have insulted a very large panther. That sounds rather brave, don't you think? And she goes, you don't know how you died? So apparently she hasn't been informed that they forget everything, so he has to explain that to her. And he has a surprise for her. We've invited a storyteller. This is Hoid, master storyteller. I believe you have some questions. And so here's our friend Hoid here to tell us some stories in a very interesting way, where he's got pockets full of shit that he sprinkles while he's telling the stories.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I actually liked that. I think I would have liked it less if we didn't know more about him, but the amount of stuff that we know about him, I don't know, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's like if we'd read this first, we'd just be like, what is up with this dude?
Yeah, like, what the hell is he doing?
But now it's just like, it's just Hoid.
I didn't catch that.
I just want to know what else he's got in his pocket. Like, he's pulling out, it starts with sand, and then he's got ash, and then he's got petals and grass, and like every toddler walking home, picking up everything they can find, and then telling a story about it later. Like, I love it. But also, what is he wearing? Like, just infinite pockets of stuff, or is there a method to it? I was really curious as to how this worked, but I thought it was very effective.
I kind of want to see this, like, on like somebody actually doing this, whether on screen or whatever, because it sounds interesting, but I have trouble like picturing it just right.
He's just pulling shit out of his pockets to sprinkle, and he drops a whole bunch of caviar, and they're just like, what does that symbolize? He's gone, that was my lunch. Fuck.
Whoops.
What's Chris's world called again?
Taldane? White Sand
Taldane?
World?
Yeah. So I was thinking when he pulls out the sand and then there's black sand and then it turns white, I'm like, wait, is that Taldane sand?
Well, it mentions ash. Did he pull that from the ash mounts in Scadrial?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Maybe.
Was each of these things from a different world? If so, that's a really extra cool part of this moment. But also then I was thinking the stuff that was described that we couldn't identify, what worlds could those be from? Are we going, like, you know, is one of them the world we're about to dive into after this book, or is it stuff that Roshar, or is it stuff that even Brandon hasn't written about yet? Or so I was just intrigued.
Right. So let's see. He's got a big beard that she thinks might be fake.
He's moonlighting as Santa Claus.
I like that she just chalks it up to, well, that might be like a thing of his trade. They just have these fake long beards to make them look more interesting.
So let's see. The first thing he pulls out is sand. So she doesn't want to jump straight to her real question, so she tries to indirectly. She's like, tell me about the Halandran history. I want to know the origin of the God Kings. And so the first thing he pulls out is sand, which he rubs between his fingers and lets drop in a stream towards the ground. And then in another hand, he brings up powdery black sand, mixing it with the sand that's falling from his first hand.
Yeah.
As she watched, the black sand turned white.
So my thought there was like, it wasn't like, maybe this first sand he laid down had plenty of those like nutrient animals in them. Or however that works. I forget how exactly the mechanics, but like, you know, the nutrient rich.
So I know.
Guys.
Like there's a lichen that grows on the sand, and
lichen.
When you get it wet or when you use the energy in there, it turns black, and then the sun recharges it with energy to make it white again.
Yeah.
So yes, he starts telling the story of ancient times when this valley was first discovered, where panthers and flowers both make their home. So apparently, panthers do just hang around here. And so these people sailed the inner sea and discovered this place that was so strange because the beaches have this fine soft sand, the fruits grow plentifully. And Ciri, in listening to him, realizes like, oh yeah, there aren't really jungles other places. This is like unique. And the next thing he pulls out is small green leaves from the fronds of a fern, she says, that he starts dropping after that. And then he throws some leaves in the air. In the center of them puffed a burst of colorful dust, like a tiny flameless firework, reds and blues mixing in the air, blowing around him. So some red and blue stuff. And so this is a land of color because of the tears of Edgley that make such amazing dyes. They can't grow anywhere else. The first returned was born during this time. So Vo was born in the waters of this very bay. He declared the 5 visions and died a week later. And the men founded a kingdom, which apparently there was no one here but like the Pancall, who were like just fishing villages, not like a actual united kingdom before this Hanald kingdom started. Then he starts dropping a powdery brown dirt from one of his hands as he reached into a different pocket. And he says, should I not speak? Why am I going back this far? Should I not speak of the many war, of the shattering of kingdoms, of the 5 scholars, of Khalid the usurper and his phantom army? But no, you have to go all the way back. It was a return. Like the many war wouldn't have started without knowledge of the returned. It was a returned, after all, who predicted the war, predicted the war, and prompted Strife Lover to attack the kingdoms across the mountains. So Khalid the usurper was also called Strife Lover, and he was a returned. As was Peacegiver, also a returned. So the returned do a lot of shit in this kingdom. And so these men who started a kingdom after the first returned chose that man's wife to be their queen. And they soon got very wealthy off of these flowers that make such a great dye. Some scholars say the many war was fought over these flower petals, that the kingdoms of Kuth and Huth were destroyed by little drips of color. And so he starts dropping flower petals from his pocket. And then some more dust of various different colors. And the other stories are that, Lightsong asks, like, oh, if that's just what some people say, what do the other people say about why the war started? The royal family was growing increasingly interested in the process by which breath could be used to bring objects to life. It was a fresh and poorly understood art then. It still is in many ways.
Yeah, so this framework that he sets up, he's basically telling the histories. I was getting confused. The entire world's not 700 years old. That's just like 700 years ago is when like they settled this area.
Yeah, I mean that's when this area was founded. Basically, he said that another people kind of were the leaders or the most powerful before then. But he does say that this awakening thing is a relatively recent discovery, barely 400 years ago. So the kingdom of Halandrin, ruled by the God Kings, has only been for like 300 years. So it was only 100 years before that awakening was even discovered. So he says, the years leading up to the Many War, those were the days of the 5 scholars and the discovery of new, capital C, commands. So to some, it was a time of great enlightenment and learning. Others called them the darkest days of men. One of the scholars made a discovery, the method by which a lifeless could be created from a single breath. And now he's dropping like scraps of torn paper with writing on them. And he's like, this might seem like a small thing, but you have to understand. And he explains here in a minute that it used to take 50 breaths to create a lifeless. And while lifeless are cool and all, like 50 is expensive. Like if you need 50 people to donate their breath to create one, then it's not all that useful. But if you can create them with one breath, that means you can effectively double the size of your army if you get all of them to donate their breath. And half of those, that new army, won't need to eat. That certainly does make things easier. The war came and the 5 scholars split, joining different sides. Some kingdoms gained the use of lifeless. Some had weapons others could only envy. And he's dropping metal at some point. I think I missed that. Oh yeah, his second hand came up dropping little bits of metal which fell to the stonework with a sound not like falling rain.
That's gotta make your hands bleed. Your skin must be like leather.
Oh, it doesn't say they're like pointy pieces. They could be like coins.
Okay. I just pictured like metal shavings. I'm just like, reaching into a pocket full of that. It's like, ugh.
That's true.
It's under your fingernails and just, I feel like if they were, little spheres or something like a ball bearing, she would say little spheres, not little bits of metal.
Yeah. Good point.
Were those each bits of metal that you could have eaten and like used for burning?
And so these new lifeless that you can create from one breath, they're in a huge advantage to the kingdoms that had them. But then Khalad, the usurper, took it even a step further by creating a new and more powerful kind of lifeless. What we've heard of repeatedly referred to as Khalad's Phantoms. This army that may still secretly be out there in the jungle somewhere, just waiting. But nobody remembers what they were exactly.
Does Danny Phantom have to go after him and like send them back to the whence they came or whatever?
The records of that time have been lost. Some say they were burned intentionally. And so she says, but we know that the royal family broke away because they had like moral problems with using lifeless, right? And he's like, yeah, that's totally what happened. And then I like Lightsong's like, psst, he's lying to you. And Hoid's like, I mean, come on, no, there's different explanations. Different people say different stuff, so why shouldn't she, believe her version? So the Idrians speak of religious indignation and of the treachery of Khalad the usurper as the reason that the royal family split off. The Pankal people say the royal family was working hard to gain powerful lifeless and awakeners, and then were surprised when their tools turned against them. In Halandrin, they say that the royal family aligned themselves with Khalad, making him their general and ignoring the will of the people by seeking war with bloodlust. So some different versions of what happened. Probably not surprising that the royal family left and started Idris, and their version makes them the morally upright good guys.
Sure.
And I like Hoid's like, I mean, it's all just stories at this point. You believe what you like about whether your family was seeking to create lifeless or not. And then he's like, yes, so the return took control of Halandrin, named it a variation of the old name, but some still speak regretfully of the royals who left bearing the blood of the first return to their highlands. And so he's like, wait, what? Blood of the who now? And Hoid's like, I mean, yeah, it was his wife pregnant with his child who became the first queen of this land. You are his descendant. And Lightsong's like, wait, you didn't know that? And she's just like, if my people know about this, we don't talk about it. Which maybe she just wasn't paying attention in her lessons again. I don't know. But I like that this is just a thing that people know. Like, oh yeah, you're descended from the return. Didn't you know this? And now we're directing questioning towards what she's really kind of interested in. How many god kings have there been? 5. including the current Lord Susebron, but not including Peacegiver. The first God King got his life and his breath from Peacegiver himself, who was revered for dispelling Khaled's phantoms and bringing a peaceful end to the many war. And so he's like, well, wait, how did he do that? How did he create a God King? And Hoid's like, yeah, I mean, nobody really knows. Legends say he died by granting his breath to his successor. And Lightstone's like, wait, that doesn't make sense. You can't make someone else divine by giving them your breath. And Hoid's like, dude, I just tell the stories. I don't know. And he goes into yet another pocket and pulls free a handful of small bits of grass and earth to let drop with as much flair as possible. So apparently these, it says that Peacegiver stopped the war and stuff, but it was too late for the kingdoms of Huth and Kuth. But the other kingdoms, Pankal, Tedradel, Gis, and Halandrin, they all came out of it okay. And so she realizes it's like, this is why my family is the only threat to like the legitimacy of this throne, because they have, their divine God King to look up to or to respect as having a right to rule. But we have the blood of the first returned in our family, and that's why that's an even potentially more divine heritage. And then we get into the actuals thing where she's like, why have there just been 5 God Kings? Why did the first one die? And Hoid's like, oh yeah, the God Kings all die like not long after they produce an heir. They tire. The gods come back for us, not for themselves. And when they can no longer endure life, they pass on. And so once the God King has made sure that he has a successor, he tires of life and looks for a reason to give up his breath. And Ciri's like, wait, everyone knows that the God Kings die after they have their kids? And he's like, I mean, yeah. At least the storytellers and the scholars all know it. And Lightsong's like, I mean, maybe that's not the best thing to tell a newlywed wife, that as soon as she bears her husband a son, he's going to get bored and die.
It's like, okay, I've got an heir. Bye.
See ya.
I ain't gonna be no daddy.
Yeah, that's what it really is. I'm not changing any diapers. I'm out.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go for a pack of cigarettes, and guess what? I'm not coming back.
Yeah, I found a village that all had diarrhea, and so I died to help them.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Like, puts a whole new spin on that. He's like, yeah, they had diarrhea, and it was so bad, I wanted to help them. So, real bad. No, you don't understand. The diarrhea was real bad.
And Ciri's like, thanks. Where did you learn that crazy storytelling method? And he says, I learned it many, many years ago from a man who didn't know who he was, in a distant place where 2 lands meet and gods have died. But that's not important.
Yeah, well, it sounds pretty important there, Hoid. You're just kind of glossing over the most interesting part there.
A man who didn't know who he was, where 2 lands meet and gods have died. There's all sorts of... What could this be?
I don't know. I thought it was Cell for a second, but the man didn't know who he was didn't seem to fit that.
And Ciri's like, oh, he's just like coming up with a mysterious past to make him look like a cooler storyteller. I get it.
When we know Hoid, and there's definitely something to it, for sure.
Right. And so she thinks, okay, so there's an official story, and honestly, it makes sense within this religion, like the story that they're telling. I get why people would believe this. And then Lightsong's like, I mean, maybe it's a good thing if he dies. Like, you have a kid, he dies, you get out of this. Like, you don't have to spend the rest of your life here. Maybe you might even get to go home. But Lightsong doesn't know how she's starting to feel about Susebron, so she's just like, okay, I need to go. I need to think for a while. And that's the end of our chapters. So yeah, some lot of Hoid knowledge drops here about the history of this planet, which is one of the things that I tend to find most interesting. So I love this section of the book, but it's not necessarily for everyone. So let's predicaments. What do you guys think? Where are we going from here?
Where do I think we're going? So I think, like we talked about earlier with Vivenna and sort of the moments that she had in her story, I really hope we're going to see a bit of a turn there. I'm hoping this means that she's a little bit more of taking a bit more of an active role in which direction that they're going, given that we know that Vasher's kind of got eyes on her. Maybe she will explore that a little bit more, and I'm hoping that they actually come together fairly soon. It's not going to be great, I don't think, obviously there's history there for our other characters. Maybe that will bring some more revelations about Denth and who he is through that way. Ciri, I think that she's going to probably buckle down and actually learn a bit more. I don't know whether she's going to have this encounter with Bluefingers at some point, and I don't know whether that's going to be, maybe she's going to play up that I need to learn a bit more. Like, you all know that, I'm not the princess that you were expecting, so I didn't really pay attention because I was never expecting to come here either. Maybe you should teach me a little bit more, and maybe kind of, I don't know, sort of befriend them in that way. Maybe she'll learn a little bit more from them, that she can plug into what she's learned from Hoid. She's falling for Susebron too, so I think she's going to try really hard to figure out a way out of this where he doesn't have to die. And I feel like at this point in every book, I'm always like, nah, he's going to die. It's not going to work out. The main character's going to die. Something's going to happen. I don't know. I'm not sure that, he will necessarily want to keep going, but he does really like her. So I'm kind of rooting for them at the moment. So we'll see how that pans out. Lightsong and Blushweaver. Blushweaver's, I don't like her, but she's scaring me with how much she can align. And I feel like we're at this point in the book that it was like, who the hell's the bad guy? We don't actually know who's going to make the first move in making it all kind of fall apart. Yeah, I'm feeling a little lost there at the moment. But I think Blushweaver is really dangerous, and I think that could be really interesting between her and Lightsong, if she is sort of the catalyst to make all of this go. Yeah, so I feel like I'm really predicting a whole bunch of nothing, really. It's more just thoughts about what's coming up. I do think that we've been kind of speculating a bit about Nightblood, and I think given the story that Hoid was telling, and that there's sort of a different kind of how did they manage to make another king, a god king? Really, there's some power that we haven't explored. So I'm not sure whether Nightblood was awakened or is somehow perhaps linked to that kind of magic. Like the soul of a person, perhaps. Although it does sound like he was made based on what he was saying last time. I don't know. There's something about Nightblood. I can't put my finger on it yet, but there's definitely, he's not simply an awakened object there, and maybe their history. And if Vash has been around for a while, we really could be only going back 300 years to, be alive. For him, that makes sense. Sorry, I'm kind of speaking as I think it, and I realize it comes out a little less coherent that way. If he has been around for a couple of hundred years, then the creation of Nightblood could very much relate to the creation of another god king. They could be tied together. So I'd be very interested to learn more about that. But yeah, that's all I've got on this week's segment of what's happening in Jamie's head right now that doesn't actually predict anything.
Okay. I want to dig into one of your thoughts a little more, because I think you brought up a really good point with who is the bad guy at this point? Is there a bad guy? Who's going to set something off? And so I want to look at our possibilities. We've got, I think the guy that probably everybody hates the most right now is Trellides. So maybe he's probably in prime bad guy position, and related to that potentially, we discussed last time, Vera Trellides. So we've got Denth and his crew, and if they've been deceiving Vivenna the whole time, which I think some theory has gone around, then they might be in a position to kick some stuff off. We still don't know what Vasher is actually trying to accomplish here, so that he and Nightblood could be in prime position to really start something, depending on what his goal is. And then, as you mentioned, we have Blushweaver, who is getting a whole bunch of power together in control of armies. Has she been telling us the truth? Has she been telling Lightsong the truth this whole time? Or does she have an ulterior motive? So I feel like there's some possibilities. What do you think? Like, what am I missing anybody that you could think of? And do you think that there's some that are more likely than others from this list?
I think pretty much covers where my thoughts were going. I guess we haven't really given much consideration to the Idris royal family as well. We definitely had some unknowns kind of thrown at us this week. I can't really think of anyone else at this stage. Yeah, who's lying, who's misguided good intentions. I don't really know. Trellides we've only met once. Or briefly? Is that?
I think
like
3 or 4
popped up a
separate
few
times. But yeah, just very briefly each time.
Very briefly, yeah. So we don't really know what's going on there. But in terms of position of power, that's a very obvious one, and perhaps too obvious. I'm not liking where they're all talking about war without talking about war. It's coming, it's not coming. They've all got very different opinions in the court of the gods and what might save them and what might not save them. If we were making, say, a like secret bad guy prediction, I think that Denth would still be the one that we don't really know enough about yet. I think Blushweaver's almost a little too obvious. Like, I don't trust her, but I don't know that she's the big bad. Could surprise us. Maybe Susebron is the big bad. Maybe he's like, let's really mess with everyone. I don't know. Sure, he doesn't have a tongue, but he can still communicate, and maybe he really is communicating. Yeah, don't really know. But I think, Denth still is too much of a mystery to feel comfortable with at this point. Yeah. And then there's the name Trellides and Vara Trellides. I don't know. I feel like Vasher he's definitely not a great character, but he's not out just to kill everybody. So while seeming as the initial bad, and still probably not a good, but probably not the overall bad.
Okay. I like your idea about Susebron. It's like, could the guy who can't talk have been misleading us this whole time? That would be unexpected.
Yeah. Secret bad guy to the max there.
Well, and it would be really weird if he did turn out to be the big bad guy, given that at the beginning of the story, everyone from Idris is absolutely convinced the God King is this big evil bad guy. And then we start to, through Ciri, be like, oh, he's not so bad after all. He's actually kind of nice. If it turned out that he was super bad after all, that would be like a double reverse. I would not see that coming.
Yeah, because Christy did that once.
Really? Okay. So some people see it coming. I get it.
I think there was like one of the Poirot mysteries. I think it was like the characters who were very obviously the murderer. Like the narrative is just like, well, they're too obvious. It can't possibly be them because it's too obvious. And then the twist at the end turned out it actually really was them.
Yeah, and actually, when I first started reading Agatha Christie, I noticed that in a couple of her early books, she had that same technique where it was like, here's the really obvious one that you assume is the red herring, and then it gets proved by whoever's investigating, Mrs. Marple or Poirot, whoever it is. It's like, oh, here's evidence that shows that they couldn't have done it. And then at the end, it turns out that they did do it after all. So,
yeah, I had the same. I feel like, and some people don't agree with me, but I feel like, what is that movie called? The Rian Johnson mystery with
Knives Out.
Knives Out.
Yeah, the first Knives Out movie. I was like, oh, the most obvious person is Ransom, and then it's like
the most famous guy in the room.
He really did do it.
Although I guess maybe he was big at the moment because of Marvel movies, but maybe he wasn't the most famous guy in the room. You have like Jamie Lee Curtis there.
Yeah, I was going to say Jamie Lee Curtis is in that.
I was going to say that's a massive cast.
It's such an amazing cast, quite honestly.
And what's his name? Michael Shannon, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yes, Michael Shannon. He's there. I don't know that he was like that big, but he's
come on, Neil before Zod. Come on.
Okay, yes, he's honestly I always remember him because he played a guy in Boardwalk Empire.
Boardwalk Empire, yeah. I feel like the plotline for his character in that show got really weird and confusing.
It was always really weird, but yes, it does get confusing. I agree. Sorry, Dak, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was like, just a case of like, the thing is, Chris Evans doesn't really show up in Knives Out until after we think, oh, we actually know that it was a suicide, and then they pull a few reversals around on that. So it's like, by the time he shows up, you think, well, there is no murderer. It's actually not quite what we were expecting. Yeah. So might want to put a spoilers for Knives Out tag on that.
Spoilers for Knives Out. Yep, retroactively. Oh man, I forgot Frank Oz is in that movie. Freaking Yoda in there. Yeah. Okay, I forgot where we were before that.
We were talking about secret bad guys, and I do want to interject. A few episodes ago, I called out, I still think it could be like Bluefingers is an option.
Oh yeah, totally forgot and left him out. I think I meant to have him on the list, and it kind of slipped my mind as I was going through it. But yes, Bluefingers, because you totally did call that out as a possibility.
Yeah, Yep. Don't care if it's wrong. It's like, swing for the fences, because half the time when you swing for the fences on this show, it pans out in some way.
It's true. Those are the best ones where you take the big swing and then it turns out you hit it.
Yep.
There's definitely been people all the way from, I think, the second episode of this book in the Discord who were like, oh my God, how did they get so like exactly on that? Or, some early episodes, somebody
sick.
at least was getting some good predictions.
Cool.
Ooh, who could it be?
Remember back in the day when we said we should take like a list or a spreadsheet of all the predictions we've made so we can keep track of it. It's like, man, that would take a fucking forever now that we're like how many episodes deep are we? 150?
Yeah, somebody just asked in the Discord the other day, like, hey, is there like a list of the predictions and stuff? And I was like, there was discussion about it once upon a time, but I was not doing it. I'm not going to take.
Well, and how many times we've contradicted ourselves and like weave different patterns out from these different things that we've said. Well, maybe it's not this, maybe it's this. Like that'd be so much.
Yep, just like whatever we happen to remember, we can call out as oh man, good prediction or not. But yeah. Formalizing it more than that and recording all these things, especially predictions can be very nebulous. Like you could say 2 whole paragraphs to kind of vaguely predict something, and how would you write that down in a spreadsheet? So no, I'm not. I just never started.
Right. Mm-hmm. Is that me now?
Yeah.
Were you done, Jamie?
Yes.
So I have one prediction today, and it's only tangentially related to what we've actually read. I think I've done that a few times this book. I'm just like, yeah, what we read is great and all. Here's this other thing which I've just come up with.
Yeah.
But it did come up briefly. So something that's been bugging me all book is what the hell does that title mean? What does Warbreaker itself mean? And it wasn't until this week, and in hindsight it seems blindingly obvious, but I think I've cracked it. I probably should have cracked this earlier, but it wasn't until Siri and Lightsong were talking about, well, Lightsong, how do you get the name Lightsong the Bold? And he's like, it's something to do with how we die, I think. I'm like, oh, Warbreaker is the name of a returned.
Oh.
It sounds just like, Hopebringer or Blushweaver.
Yeah.
It sounds exactly.
Yeah.
It sounds exactly like those, and obviously
runs with water.
Yeah, and. To our knowledge, there's no returned named Warbreaker at this point. We don't exactly have a cast list of all the ones there, but I'm just gonna make an assumption that there currently is no returned called Warbreaker. I think by the end of the book there will be one. Let's say, because it's all about we're building up to this war between Idris and Halendron. I think at some point we will see the birth of a new returned. We'll see exactly how it happens, and then that person's death will in some way stop the war or something. So let's go, Warbreaker, great name, and then that person will be like a new returned in the court, or if the court still exists, or whatever hell Halendron looks like at that point. For candidates for this new returned, I think it might actually be Vivenna. I think that would be particularly tragic because, we were talking this week about how her autonomy has just been taken away from her all her life, but it just seems to fit that theme. It fits the theme of, like, the most powerful person in the room becoming someone that everyone else thought was actually powerless. And I have no evidence to base this on, but I think the people who become returned, it's got to have something to do with how much breath they have, and Vivenna has got quite a lot of it now. So
she does.
There's that. And yeah, if she somehow used the breath and died and prevented the war, that just seems like the logical outcome of her attempts to ensure there is no war between her people, but in the most completely unexpected way. So I have no idea how she would pull it off, but that's where my brain has gone.
I like this idea. You're 100% right. That it does sound like. I mean, you'd have to add something to it. It's like Warbreaker the something. Okay, you're doing a prediction. What would be that? It's Warbreaker the what?
Warbreaker the selfless, because that's what Vivenna has always been expected to be in her life.
Okay. And Vivenna is a good candidate for that. Who are other potential candidates? I don't think we've ever heard of a returned dying and returning. So the returned are probably all out. So who does that leave us with? We got like Siri.
Sorry,
I don't see Siri dying.
Denth, Vasher.
Well, I
It
still
would be
think
sad if Siri dies.
I think
Yeah,
I
Jen?
tossed up before between, like, I think Vivenna, you're pretty well on the money. I reckon she's going to be the one that does it. And I reckon it's going to have something to do with Nightblood as well. And it could be Ciri, but I think Vivenna's the obvious
Oh, Nightblood,
candidate.
you're right, because Lightsong saw his painting the woman holding the black sword. Boom,
Yeah.
there it is. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
I
like
completely
Cluedo.
forgot about that.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you've hit I had a prediction a couple of weeks back that was something similar, that one of our characters was going to be a returned, but I think what you stitched together, definitely Vivenna would be my pick.
Yep.
That is a deep cut sort of prediction, and I like it a lot. I think that's another that you put a lot of thought into that, and I like it.
Yeah, because I think I had theorized that he thought it was a woman, but it was actually Vasher, because Vasher has a sword. He's got long hair. But that's what I like what you said too, because we don't really know what he saw, because it was like a vision-y scene of the image of the painting, I guess, or magic-y vision of the painting.
I mean, the other thing to consider is Vasher has his eyes on Vivenna. We know that he's followed her around a couple of times, so there's every possibility she could get Nightblood that way.
Well, yeah, especially if he because he's mentioned now that maybe he should do away with her. Maybe if he throws the sword down, expecting her to succumb to it, and then it turns out she wields it, that would be pretty shocking to him.
What did he say? Nightblood can't tempt the pure of heart, or something like that.
It is something like that. Hold on.
Because I mean, I think Vivenna might fit that bill potentially.
He says, "You cannot tempt the hearts of men who are pure, Nightblood."
So it's not their hearts that are pure, but the men themselves.
Yeah, I guess so. All those pure men out there, not like 90% men. 100% pure, undiluted.
They're all man, baby.
Okay, no, I like that was great. I don't even know what to. That's got some possibilities. I think Vivenna would be a good fit for that. I think you're right, but I was just like, if it wasn't her, who else could it be? Because
I genuinely don't know who else it could be.
Yeah, fair enough.
Man, such great predictions. I don't even know where to go. I agree with Jack and Damie in that. Wow.
I've done that before. It's okay.
Jack and Damie, good old Jack and Damie. No, Dak and Jamie. That this is this could be like a big turning point for Vivenna. I think we talked about that earlier in the episode as well. It's like she's now been through a pretty traumatic experience. She's already given in to the idea of relying on the breaths. So we've got that kind of in play. It's very possible that she'll start to use them. If you had asked me at the outset of the book, I'd be like, nah, I bet she'll hold on until the very end of the book before she uses them. But now I'm not so sure. So we've got that potentially happening. The series Susabaron stuff, I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with my theory that they're going to work one side of the case and Lightsong's working the other side of the case, and they're going to meet in the middle, which they've already kind of met in the middle because she's relied on him somewhat since I made that prediction originally. Yeah. But I feel like it's going to continue. I don't know how to feel about Blushweaver. She's getting these undead, these lifeless together under her sole control. So is what she's doing altruistic? I just don't know. I don't, and I think that's the point. Is we're supposed to be very unclear about what her motivations are at this point. But it just seems so dangerous what she's doing that I can't imagine that it's being done for good cause. So I think she may be bad. Maybe she's bad in conjunction with some of the priests and stuff, but I don't know. Vasher seems very concerned with what the princess is doing, screwing things up, as he said, or however he said it. So my thoughts there is he's wanting the war, but I can't imagine why he would want the war. But so we have that piece. Yeah, it's really just we don't know enough about what seem to be tertiary characters, but may not be tertiary characters. We don't seem to know enough about their motivations to know exactly what's going to happen next. So, I mean, I would speculate that Vasher's a good guy. I don't know. I don't feel like this amount of mystery would be put into it, or maybe he's an anti-hero, but I don't know. Something strikes me as hero from him. Maybe because he's the prologue guy, but I don't know. So I even if he's against Vivenna, maybe it's because of information that he doesn't yet know. But we of course still don't know what he found in the basement of that palace. We don't know what the priests are hiding. So like, there's just so many variables. I'm not sure. I don't know. And as for who Warbreaker is, I mean, a lot of people, I don't know, breaking wars, I would assume, is why you get called that. You broke some kind of war, right? Warbreaker, the angry, the rageful. If it was Vivenna, she's gonna become like super rageful. Secret bad guy is Vivenna. Her rage will take over, and she will become the bad guy.
We do already have one return character that we know of who like stopped war, but that's Peacegiver. So
yeah. Well, here's the thing. If I'm sticking with Vasher being a hero, then I'm gonna say, which I know we've kind of been leaning towards this a little bit, I'm gonna say Denth / Trelides, whatever his name is like the ultimate bad guy here, because they're at odds, right? Like, he does not like Vasher. Vasher's
they're
like
definitely opposed. Yep.
Yeah, they're opposing forces. So we've got these two guys with seemingly extremely high levels of skill, or if not skill, at least power, and they're at odds. So I'm gonna go with Denth being ultimate bad guy, which would be really interesting if he because like I said, I think everything he's done up until this point, I've said this in a previous episode, it's been a manipulation on Vivenna. Like, he's been basically telling her, hey, you shouldn't do this, hey, you should do this, you should think about this. He's putting these little notes in her ear, and even when she was about to use the awakening power, she heard Denth's voice in her head. So it's like he's obviously made space in her psyche, and she has taken his suggestions at first because she was ignorant of how things worked in Tetelier, and things were working out when she did what he said, and so I'm wondering, like, is his goal to basically stop this war from happening? Like, his goal seems to be to help stop the war from happening, or at least make it not go well for Tetelier. And if Vasher's against that, then there's a reason that the war is important, but I don't know what that reason is. So, like, why is war good? If I'm saying Vasher's good and Denth is not, like, why is war good? So it can be broken? Get it? Anyway, so yeah, that's really all I got. No, that was kind of vague, but yeah.
That is, yeah, okay. There's some interesting thoughts in there about Denth and kind of what, because yeah, you have said for a while that you feel like he was kind of manipulating Vivenna, and then we got, I hadn't thought about Denth's voice in Vivenna's head here. Now I'm feeling like Reen is showing up again.
Well, we know that wasn't actually Reen, but yeah.
Well, or maybe that wasn't actually Denth. You ever think of that?
Oh, it's some other god, huh?
Does Vivenna have any earrings? Maybe Ruin's talking to her.
No, she's just got colorful hair, but that's pretty. I would assume that has something to do with investiture.
Now I want to look at I want to take a look at the timeline again and see when does this supposedly happen in relation to, is Ruin still around even? Let's find out. So Warbreaker takes place, according to this, and once again this is just fan made. I don't know how accurate it is. This book takes place about 200 years after the end of Hero of Ages. So
interesting.
Right,
so after Era 1, so Ruin should already be dead.
Yeah, right in that sweet spot between Era 1 and Era 2. Which actually, now that I look at it, according to this, it's like this would also be about 100 years before the Stormlight books start. So this is all kind of, compared to some of the timelines so far with like thousands of years happening between them, this is all relatively close. Interesting. Anyways, so yes, you've got it was a little scattershot, but you've got the core of some interesting thoughts going on there.
Yeah,
and
I think there's just too many variables for me right now. Like, I can't focus in on one thing, and not because I don't want to be wrong, but just because it's like I can't fathom something that sounds interesting or good enough to be possible.
And it's interesting about like Vasher and Denth, because like you said, they are opposed to each other Although it seems like maybe at some point they knew each other well enough that, like Denth knows what Nightblood can do and stuff.
Right.
So
I mean, it's funny because they do seem opposed, but it's like Denth is so angry and Vasher seems almost apathetic.
Yep.
Except like he's getting in my way.
Right. So they could be like diametrically opposed. One of them is bad, one of them is good. Or it could be, a more complex situation where there's a misunderstanding
chaotic evil.
Or it could even be like they're both on the same side, but they hate each other still. So they fight about how to do things.
More of like an anime rival situation.
Yeah, could be.
Like a Goku Vegeta type of thing.
For some reason, when you said anime rival, my first thought was Pokemon and his rival, Ash's rival Gary or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean,
that's not quite the
fucking.
It's the same
Gary.
trope. What's funny to me is like in the canon, in the actual games, they're not Gary and Ash. They're like blue,
they're red and blue or whatever.
Yeah.
So yes, possibilities there, just like kind of nebulous at this point, but. I will say that the next set of chapters brings some very interesting stuff into play, and I'm very excited for discussing them next week. I think that some of the things that you guys have been impatient for are going to start happening with these next set, and we'll see what you think. Speaking of, our next set of chapters is 4 chapters, so 33, 34, 35, and 36. Nice long chunk for us to read there. So for anyone following along, which I know several people are on Warbreaker, 4 chapters for next time. And in the meantime, let us go into, we have a couple of new patrons and a couple of new emails. We'd had like a slow couple of weeks before this, but now we got some people. So Joe, get your patron stuff ready. Mm-hmm. We have 2 new patrons at the ska level. The first one is Mr. Mophead.
Mr. Mophead. Wow, that's an interesting moniker, my friend. Mr. Mophead, you can be a sentry. You store wakefulness.
And then the second one is Joshua.
Joshua, you're a spinner. You store fortune.
Nice. The fortune one is always interesting to me.
Yeah.
Okay, we got like 3 emails. Some of them are short though, so we can probably do all these. Okay, so and this first one we actually talked about last week, so we may not get into this much since we've already kind of given our opinions. But Scott sent an email. Question for the crew. Hi all, just a quick question since I was waiting for it to come up on the pod naturally, but I don't think it has. It came up last week. I want to know what the group thinks is the shard or shards on Nalthis, and who might the vessel be?
The vessel.
Ooh.
I don't remember if I gave an opinion on this, and if I did, I don't remember what I said, and I don't have an opinion this week.
I think that was your opinion last week.
I think we talked about the shard, and I know Dak came up with something. Maybe the vessel is Bluefingers.
Is that a new term for us, vessel? I don't remember that term. I mean, I'm assuming by context it means who's holding the shard.
Yeah, we may have called it like shard bearer or holder or something like that before, but vessel is actually the term.
I think vessel is a particularly awkward term to be using in this book, considering that's what all the Halandrian pieces of shit priests are calling Ciri.
You're right.
Yeah.
It is.
What's up, vessel?
Maybe Ciri is the vessel. Maybe they're
just
cutting out the crap, and she's the vessel.
Yeah.
Ciri is secretly God.
Whoa.
Maybe Susebron. Hold on. Yeah, I was about to say. I think what you're about to say, Dak, is Susebron have the shard inside of him, and he passes it as his heir.
Yes.
And then she's the vessel.
That's why they gotta die. It's like God's power is no longer keeping him up.
Yeah, nuclear vessels.
Nuclear vessels. Okay, yeah, no, okay, but then what is it? If the God King is like the embodiment of this shard somehow, what would it be?
When we woke up, we had these bodies. Yeah, what would it be? I don't know, something about passing from one to another, because that's how the breaths are passed as well. So, forbearance? I don't know what word would describe what I'm trying to say. Transference? Yeah, I don't know.
Kind of a weird attribute for someone to have.
Mm-hmm.
Just, what was this? Was this shard just like a really good mail delivery person or something? Oh my god, it's Fry.
Yeah.
Fry.
Maybe it has something to do with like energy transfers. Like, I don't know.
I'm not going to do hints, but I will say that you guys are the line of thought that you're using is a really interesting one, and I think that it would be kind of fitting for it to be along those lines, given what the magic system is that we've seen. But yeah, okay.
Well, Bart, your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.
What does Jamie think?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible at these sorts of predictions because I just, can't really think of the right words. And now the data said that's maybe kind of got some weight to it. I'm like, well, I don't know what else would go with it. I think, was it, Dak, what did you say last week? Something about
Creativity.
was it creation or creativity? I thought that was really cool and would definitely.
It just seems like a personality attribute. So.
Right.
Mm.
In the same way that that autonomy or
autonomy or like what was
preservation, ruin.
What was the angry one that got mentioned? Odium.
Yep.
Yeah. Like hatefulness. I'm like, well, that, yeah. There's and devotion and dominion were the others. They're the ones.
Oh yeah, devotion.
They're the
definitely.
dead ones.
Right. Very dead.
Actually, we've got quite a list of shards that we've already found out about.
Right, and I know that we have at least one other name that just came up, like when Chris was listing off some that we haven't actually seen yet, because you predicted the possibility of it showing up a couple of places.
Have I? Hang on. All right, I'm gonna find Arcanum. Keep going. I might take a minute.
Okay, so yeah, that was a good question. Even though we talked about it last week, I feel like we got some more interesting. We squeezed some more interesting juice out of that one on this one. So thank you, Scott. Good email. I like the ones that prompt discussion. The next one is from Ryan, who says, love the show. Hey, Data, Joe, Jamie, and Dak. All spelled correctly. Look at that. I've been listening to your podcast since early June. I'm not quite caught up yet. I've only just started the Bands of Mourning. I would have been further along, but took 2 weeks off to deal with some family stuff. I mostly mention this because I enjoy hearing you all reacting to people binging your podcast. So yeah, he started in June and has taken 2 weeks off and is up through Bands of Mourning at this point. So that's pretty quick binge.
That's a lot of podcasting.
Yeah.
We're only in July. That's a lot of podcasting.
Yeah.
But here's a real test. Were you keeping a spreadsheet of our predictions?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, bravo to you to suffer through my voice for that many hours. Oof, I tell you.
I love the podcast. Listening to your journey through the Cosmere has made my workdays far more enjoyable. I've been wanting to write for a while, but wanted to wait until I either caught up or had something more to write than just I love the show. In this case, I saw a video on TikTok where Brandon talks about a typo that almost made it into Wall of Ascension. I think you guys will get a laugh out of it, given your love of thick books. And so, yes, I did send them all this TikTok yesterday without mentioning that it was going to come up in the discussion today.
Oh, that's funny. And I did mention thick books after you sent the video.
Yep. So, yes, in case you were unaware, the TikTok is Brandon talking about he mentions that there was a typo in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter that made it through. And but he's like, I'm not going to talk about that one. I'm going to talk about this one that almost made it into Well of Ascension, which was Vin says that Elend is a man of magnificent balls.
Streets. Yeah, and Elend's a man of magnificent balls, you know. See, so when a girl of the streets meets a man with magnificent balls, we all know what's going to happen.
I don't think it's actually a typo per se, because it actually makes sense in context, because Elend is from the upper crust and he attends all these marvelous balls. Yeah. Unfortunately, in the modern day and age where we all have our minds in the fucking gutter, we take it somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what though, guys?
Interesting choice of wording.
Yeah, but you know what, guys? Do you remember the song in the Possum Hunters? Elend is the man with the great big pearls.
Wow.
And if you want to get that joke, you need to listen to Possum Hunters Episode 1 on our Patreon. Available now.
But in case you guys were interested, everyone out there, I didn't know about the typo in Yumi, so I had to go and dig it up and do some Googling to figure out what it was that Brandon didn't want to talk about. So there is a moment where a female character says, is supposed to say, I'm trying not to scream. And according to Peter Ahlstrom, who works for Brandon at Dragonsteel and does some of this stuff, he was fixing a typo where the letter S in Scream was capitalized when it didn't need to be, or not capitalized when it didn't need to be. Doesn't matter. Anyway, but instead of replacing the S with the other capital,
he just deleted it.
No, he put a C, and so it says, "I'm trying not to cream," and so yeah. It's a weird little typo, but so people were enjoying pointing that out, and I think I read somewhere that they've since fixed it in the digital version, but there's nothing to do about it in the print version.
I was about to say, not on the hardback on my shelf. It's not fixed.
Nope.
Can't fix that. It's print.
So yes, that was a very fun TikTok that Ryan sent us. We appreciate that, and he signs the email Ryan or Darth Bane 42 in the Discord. So a lot of fun. Thank you. And finally, we have an email from Lance that says, "Can we be friends? Hi, Sanderlanche crew. New-ish listener here. First off, thank you for putting in the work to make such a wonderfully entertaining podcast. Not only do you guys give great summaries and insights to the chapters, you also have so much fun bantering back and forth. I absolutely love it. Joe, keep the Final Fantasy references coming."
Oh, I didn't stop. There's one. There's one in this episode.
All right, yeah, we referenced Final Fantasy X in this episode.
Yeah.
Joe's just like, wasn't gonna, but okay.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I began my Sanderson journey in November with Stormlight. That was before I knew about the greater Cosmere. I've now read all of the Cosmere, except Lost Metal, which I'm currently working on, White Sand, which I'm waiting for the omnibus, and Secret Project 3, which I'm waiting for to come in the mail so I can read it in a single weekend. I wish I'd found this podcast sooner, because the order you guys have read the books in makes so much sense. I found your podcast when I started the Mistborn books back in February, and have been listening along episode by episode, chapter by chapter. I've had fun predigging along with Jamie, Joe, and Dak. I'm still not over the fact that Joe got 2 Secret Conjure predictions right. I was on board for the Tensoon prediction from Well of Ascension, but I thought the Leslie prediction for Shadows of Self was a bit out there. I stand corrected. Anyway, I just finished the first episode of The Lost Metal, and I wanted to give Dak some validation. This was the episode you mentioned, the scene you had to write set in Africa with washed-up celebrities, and then the celebrities had to figure out who the secret African animal was in disguise, and they turned around and there was a hippo in a chef's costume. I can picture this scene perfectly in my head, and I burst out laughing. Not like a giggle or a chuckle, but a full-on belly laugh. My friends and I have a similar sense of humor, and it sounds like a skit that we would come up with, so I appreciate your humor in that scene a lot. Woo! Screw your classmates who didn't find it funny. That's funny as hell.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, sometimes you got to be on the same
Follow-up.
wavelength with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the group Auntie Donna? They're Australian and have many YouTube videos.
Yep, I know Auntie Donna's house.
Also a Netflix special. They're absolutely my favorite comedy group out there. I've never heard of them, but if they're on Netflix, maybe I'll check it out.
They are pretty good. Some of their skits, like I'm absolutely busted laughing. Other ones just don't land for me. It's so, and that's just comedy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But they're good value. They're worth a watch.
Anyway, sorry for the long email. I can be long-winded. Thank you for putting on such a great podcast. I hope the Sanderlanche babies are doing well also. Can't wait to catch up and hear your thoughts on Warbreaker, as it's the best standalone Brando Sando has written, and definitely top 5 works overall in my opinion. Wuzzing to the time of next, Colo from Lance. So, thank you. We appreciate it. I love that you've been following along so long and getting to predict stuff with everybody else. That's fun.
Yeah, that is cool.
Those are our emails. If anyone would like to send us an email like those folks did, the address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram and Twitter, or I'm sorry, X now.
Oh God, yeah.
Facebook,
Oh,
Patreon.
is that like official? I didn't know.
Yeah, like the logo has changed on the website.
Oh, I haven't changed my phone, so I didn't know.
It's still at twitter.com. I doubt x.com is available, but
X Corp. Oh my gosh.
X videos. Oh wait.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oof.
Yes.
Big
Or
oof.
on Patreon, where I am in the middle of posting my first read-through reactions to Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and so those are going up as we speak. I've got like 5 more already edited and scheduled to upload, so there will be content there for a couple of weeks yet to come. So enjoy that, patrons. What else? Remember, for next time, we're doing 4 more chapters. Music by Miracle of Sound. Thank you to all our listeners, our patrons, people sending in emails, people on the Discord. If you'd like to join the Discord, go to our website, www.thesanderlanche.com, and there's a link at the top of the page. Interesting discussions happening there.
Yeah, leave us a review, and I'll jump you into the Misting crew.
Oh yeah, we haven't had a review in a while. If you want to leave us a review on like Apple Podcasts, 5-star review will get you jumped into the Misting Crew by Joe.
That's right. And
Or,
then if you join
as
the
you heard-
Patreon,
Yep.
you can then you get to be a ferrochemist as well. We got it all going on. You could be
get a
you
fairing.
could be what do they call them again?
Twinborns.
Twinborn? Yeah,
Yeah,
we've had a
it
couple
could be a Twinborn.
Twinborn coincidentally because Joe does not remember what he gave you for one thing versus the other. So
Yeah, definitely didn't remember.
Yep. Fun stuff. Check it out. 4 chapters for next time. And Wasing to the time of next. Colo? P.S. Vasher. Did we see Vasher at all these chapters? I don't think we did,
No.
did we?
No, it's
No.
Vasherless chapters once again.
It happens.
Yeah, this book is the worst.